What's up, guys? Welcome to Neek, which stands for Nerd/Geek. And I can't believe I saw a movie in the theater. Yeah, this is my first time going to a theater in over 6 months, which is crazy. I can't remember the last time it was that long since I saw a movie. Probably the last time was probably when I was really little. So yeah, it's kind of crazy going back in there. Just so good to be in a theater again. So yeah, theaters aren't even open where I live, so I had to drive 2.5 hours to watch this movie. I had to go to another state to watch it, and I was like, as I was sitting down, I'm like, this is my first movie in over 6 months in a theater. I had to travel 2.5 hours. This better not be a disappointment, and I can say it was not a disappointment. So yeah, Christopher Nolan is probably my favorite director. I don't have an exact list of my favorite directors, but he's probably my top one. I mean, he just has a bunch of movies I just absolutely love, including probably my favorite movie of all time. I'd probably consider it my favorite movie of all time, which is Inception. So let's just say I had high expectations going into this, and I'd say that it lived up to it. So yeah, basically, this is going to be start off like lots of my reviews. Start off spoiler free, and then I'll dive into spoilers because there's a lot of spoilery stuff I want to dive into. But also, I know lots of people haven't had the chance to watch this movie, so I want to give my thoughts without spoilers. So yeah, the first thing I gotta bring up is just the main simple idea with the inversion stuff, which is mind-blowing, phenomenal. How he's able to pull it all off. Coming up with the idea, coming up with the specifics on it, and then executing it is kind of crazy how he's able to do all of it, because as you see some stuff in the trailer, you have scenes where some stuff is going forward and some stuff is going backwards, but then even like in fight scenes, one guy can be going forward, one guy can be going backwards, and he's able to visualize it in such an interesting way, and it brought this new element of a fight scene that we have never seen before. So that stuff was just mind-blowing, amazing. He pulled it off extremely well. And even without inversion, there's still some cool action scenes in here. Some other ones, like there's some big set pieces, like you see the plane explosion, and then like you see the kitchen fight as a hand-to-hand fight without inversion. I thought it was actually really cool and really well done. You can definitely tell how Nolan has improved on doing his fight choreography than with the Dark Knight trilogy. So now I want to kind of talk about the characters, because one complaint I've been hearing a lot about this movie is the characters don't have much depth or really arcs, with the exception of Kat, which, while I do agree with this, I don't think it's a problem. I actually think it kind of benefits the movie. I bet you guys are like, what? How could it benefit the movie to have worse characters? But hear me out. So there are two types of stories: plot-based and character-based. And I think you can tell a great story with either type. Like, I love The Matrix, and that's definitely a plot-based movie. And I love The Office, which is definitely a character-based. But for The Office, even though it's character-based, you still need a plot. You can have like simple plots because the characters are so strong, but you still need some sort of plot or it just falls flat. And it goes the other way around, where no matter how good your plot is, if you can't connect to the characters at all, if they don't feel like real people, then you can't get on board to the movie. But you don't necessarily need big character arcs. I feel like you need at least one main character that's a character arc, and the rest of the characters should at least have a couple layers to their personality. Of course, you don't have to just do the minimum. You can have a great plot and great characters. Like Community is a character-based TV show, but it does more than the minimum on lots of these plot lines, as it does have some very interesting plot lines, which I think adds more to it. And then there's some things that seem to be both character and plot based, which for some examples I think are the MCU and Stranger Things. But for Tenet, I actually think it's a good thing they just did the minimum for the characters, which again seems weird, but let me explain. Because this movie is so complicated and so confusing, and they pack so much into this runtime that like every second has something important. If they tried to fit these giant character arcs for all these characters in it, it would just be way too overstuffed. And where as with all the stuff I mentioned, where they're able to balance being plot based and character based, were either TV shows or franchises, so they have a bunch more time to spend on this world and characters to build on the plot and characters. But for Tenet just being a single movie, and they had to focus so much on this plot, which takes a lot of time to fully understand and explain, if they tried focusing a bunch on the characters, I think it would take away from the plot, which for this specific movie, I think the plot is more important. And I think the characters do reach the minimum requirements as you have a character arc for Kat, which I think works. And then for the protagonist, well, I guess he doesn't really have an arc. He has a character journey he has to go through to find who he is. And he does have a fun, interesting personality and a motivation, as you see he cares for Kat. So I think he does enough for the main character in this movie. And the villain Sator, I think, works as the villain, as he's just this very evil guy who wants to be stopped, which makes it easier to latch onto to our good characters because you just want to stop him so bad. And the only other main character we really have here is Neil, which doesn't really have an arc, but he does have a fun personality and screen presence, and he has a very important role to the story, an interesting backstory that you kind of unfold, so you're kind of interested in him too. And then Robert Pattinson just gives a great performance as him. I can't wait to see him in the Batman. And all the performances around the board are great. So are they the best characters? No. But I think for this specific movie, I think they really work. And then I got to mention the score, which wasn't from Hans Zimmer, who usually does Nolan scores. It was from Ludwig Göransson, who has some amazing scores. He's a great composer. He's done the Mandalorian music, which I think is great. He's also done like Black Panther and the Creed movies, which I think have great scores. And then he's even done one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Community. So I really like the music in this movie. It's probably not my favorite of his scores, but I still think it's really good. This movie was also great from all the technical aspects. Well, besides one, but I'll get into that in a second. The cinematography looked great. The production design, all the different special effects. There were no like CGI in this movie, which I think is really cool. They were able to pull it off without any CGI, but all the more like special effects, practical effects were good. Cinematography good. Lots of just editing good. All that aspects I thought were really well done. But the one that there's a little bit of controversy on is the sound mixing, which lots of people complained about, that it was too hard to hear people's dialogue and stuff, and some people actually kind of liked it, how the sound mixing really brought you and felt like you were in the movie. For me, I guess I'm kind of mixed on it. The sound mixing where you couldn't hear the dialogue didn't really affect me that much. I feel like I could mostly hear everything they're saying. There's only like a couple scenes I can think of where I really couldn't tell what they were saying. And that is a couple of the action scenes that have lots of stuff going on and like bolts and stuff, which is the opening scene and then like the end battle. Those are the only ones where I couldn't hear during a battle, and especially within the climax of that battle. I don't want to say it because it's still the spoiler-free section, but that was the one part where I was frustrated that I couldn't really hear what was going on. And then the only other scene where I couldn't really hear was when they're on the boat and stuff. Like when they're on the boat, there's lots of stuff, but generally I could hear it all fine. And I thought the other sound design was actually really good. And in the battles, even though I was kind of annoyed, I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying because they were wearing masks in those battles I mentioned, and there's a bunch of like other sounds and stuff. But I actually thought the sound design to have like the bullets and explosions, it really gave you the feeling that you were there. So I'm a tiny bit mixed on it, but I can totally understand how someone could like get super annoyed by the sound mixing, so I had to bring it up. So now I'm going to talk about spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, skip ahead to this time to avoid spoilers. You have 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. This movie is just, wow. Yeah, So kind of as talking about the action, I kind of want to dive a little bit deeper in there now that I can talk about stuff like more the spoilery stuff. So like as I was saying in that fight scene where you see the protagonist fight the protagonist, like that scene was just amazing. And like both times they showed it, I thought it was amazing. The first time it's just like, oh, this is a really cool fight. You've never seen something before. One guy's going backwards and one guy's seen going forward. Like, oh, it's a really cool thing. And then like they bring it back up later in the film. Like you into this car chase, and this car chase I actually thought was actually pretty. Like I was already engaged before the inversion stuff, and then the inversion stuff starts happening, and like that's just brings it to a whole nother level of interesting. And then we get to this red and blue scene, which kind of changed the whole movie. Before the red and blue scene, I was interested in the movie. I was enjoying the movie. I definitely liked it. But it wasn't until I thought it was kind of going to be like just like that, where it's just going to be like just the spy movie with a couple inverted elements here and there, a couple inverted people and stuff. But then the red and blue thing changed like everything for the movie. And just since starting at that point forward, I just loved this movie. Cause like at the actual scene like itself where you're first seeing it is like going backwards and stuff, it's like really cool and stuff in the way they did it. I think it's really interesting instead of just going, it's an interesting kind of a new way to do time travel where you're inverted, and then like you literally have to physically go back and stuff. Just some very interesting stuff. And then like yeah, out of all the crazy concepts Nolan has been trying to do, like entering people's dreams and sort of stuff, this one is definitely the most complex and the hardest to pull off. Like with pulling off Inception, it's extremely hard, but it's based off something everyone does. Everyone dreams, so people can kind of connect there and they make that connection. Because even though dreams are so weird and don't really make any sense, you can kind of make sense of it because you have dreams. But then, as far as I know, you cannot invert things in real life. So that makes it a whole lot harder to pull it off, as we don't have that connection in our brains to think of things inverted. Our brain thinks forwards. So when they're showing inverted stuff, we have to like think and process, and it's hard to process. So I think that's a really hard thing to pull off, and I think Nolan did the best of it. And talking about like comprehending things going backwards and forward, I gotta talk about that scene where the in battle scene is just crazy how he's able to do that. Because first off, doing a big action scene with like explosions and that sort of stuff is hard to pull off enough. But this one, he got half of the people going forward, half of the people going backwards, explosions being inverted, things going back, then like the building exploding here and here. All that stuff is impossible to pull off. I don't know how he was able to do that. Even just having the two armies, one inverted and one non-inverted, in the same frame, just makes it seem like, wow. So I was just in awe of that scene in general. And then, wow. But to talk about like how this story kind of comes together, I think it works well enough. Of course, when you first watch it, it's a lot like to process all at once. You're like have to like keep up with all this stuff when like they're giving you, and it can be a lot to process. So when I was initially watching it, I just went in knowing that it was going to be pretty complicated. So I'm just going to try to enjoy the ride mostly and catch what's important, and then think about more the details. I decided to not think about any of the like logisticness, like if it like worked from a logic standpoint while watching the movie. I decided I'm just going to think about that after the movie so I can enjoy the movie better, which I think is a really good choice, to enjoy the movie when you first watch it and then go back once you've watched it, then process it and then think about it. Instead, then if you don't do that and you try to like thinking about the logic while watching the movie, it's going to really not work because you can't fully concentrate on the movie, which means you'll miss more stuff. and like lots of things. So I think that's a better way to like watch this movie. And I think at first still kind of I was very confused with all the time travel moments. There's plenty moments I didn't really notice. Like like in the opera house in the very first scene, you see the same thing that's at Neil's like backpack thing. So that means Neil was the one who saved the protagonist. I didn't pick that up right away because that was something at the very beginning. I didn't fully like remember that and stuff. And there's a couple things that like you have to like think about after, and as you go through this movie again. I sadly cannot rewatch this movie. I really wish I could right now, but theaters aren't open where I live. If not, I would rewatch this movie right away. But I basically had to watch a bunch of breakdown videos, completely going through the plot to see what I missed because I cannot watch it again. But once I go through there, I think the plot does make sense. I do love fixed timeline plots, like when you're doing time travel stuff. I think if you go the non-fixed route, the non-fixed route can sometimes be a little bit easier to go, but I think the fixed route makes it the most interesting when you go for that fixed route where everything has already happened and there's no way you can change it, because then you can bring up lots of stuff that come up earlier, like show things in different ways that you didn't see before, like how Kat was the person who jumped off and stuff like that, which I think is just really interesting ways to do it. So I do really like the fixed timeline thing, and I think they played it out pretty well, and I think it all makes sense. And then also, like, I really like the whole idea with the protagonist is actually the one who started the organization, and he, like, recruited Neil and stuff, and I think all that works because you got this fixed timeline. So, yeah, I think he really pulled off all the timeline stuff. I don't really see any plot holes I can really think of. So, yeah. So I guess this is kind of like a thing I need to announce. Basically, at this point, I normally do my score for the movie, but I'm decided I'm not really going to score my movies within my videos. And the reason is that because I feel like I'm giving this normally I do it off of one viewing, which I can't fully get my full thoughts on until I see it multiple times, and I feel like once I say it, it's stuck there because I can't go back and edit the video, so I don't really like staying to one specific rating. So basically, if you want to see how I'd rate movies, I still will rate movies, but I'm not going to do it in my videos. If you want to see my ratings in movies, follow me on Letterboxd. You can click right up on that corner to go check out my Letterboxd. That way you can see where I'd rate movies, and also you can check out plenty of movies. I see so many movies that I don't do reviews for lots of times because they're not new releases, or just I'm so busy with stuff, trying to do stuff. So if you want to see my thoughts on a bunch of different movies, you can check it out there. I have plenty of, you can check out my rating for a bunch of different movies. I've logged like 400 movies on there. And then also you can check out a bunch of reviews on there, written reviews. So if there's a movie I didn't get the chance to review on my channel, like new releases I didn't get the chance to, I made sure to. Like I have a 1917 Knives Out and Ford v Ferrari reviews, which were movies I saw last year, but I didn't have time to make a video. You can check out reviews there. And then also from now on, whenever I watch a movie, I make sure to have some sort of review on Letterboxd. So if you want to see my thoughts on more movies, along with my ratings for movies, you can check out my Letterboxd. And the reason I'm just going to rate movies there is because I can always just go back and change it. So that's kind of why I'm going to stick to ratings there. But I'm still going to give like my thoughts, like my overall thoughts at the end of the video, but not a specific score. So my overall thoughts for this is just, I really loved it. I guess I could technically see why someone would not like it. I do understand it, but for me, I just was blown away by it. I thought it worked on almost every standpoint. And what it did really well. It did really, really well. I can't wait to watch this movie again. I don't think it's my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Inception's still there, but as of now, I think it might actually be my second favorite which is kind of crazy considering how much I love the, like, I love, really love my top 5 on there, so I'm surprised this one made it all the way to number 2. But yeah, I just really love this movie. So that is my review for Tenet. Comment down below what you thought about the movie. If you watched it, if you can't watch it because theaters aren't open where you live, or do you not feel safe going to movie theaters, let's have a conversation down there. Please like and subscribe, and keep watching Neat.